Hello and welcome to today's Working Wonders. We're going to be talking about borders or boundaries with two entrepreneurs, basically globetrotters. Both have been around in Europe, Asia and the Down Under. We have Lucy von Sturmer here and she's the founder of Humble Brag. And we also have Jacco Bouw, who's the founder of Web Power and Agency China. And we're going to talk to them today is like how they experienced moving around the world, building up businesses, selling businesses, partnerships, and everything else that basically has to do with changing landscapes. Let's start with you, Jacco. What made you decide to enter A, in the world of the digital, and B, in doing that in China?
Yeah, it's nothing to do with my study that I had, but I had the idea that I should build websites, but after a few months, and it was already in 1999, I thought I could do email marketing as well. Being big in the Netherlands, and thinking about our models, we said, okay, you should go international. In the end, the Netherlands is quite a small country. And we thought we had already covered the Netherlands. So we said, okay, we should go to Europe. But still, Europe is quite a lot of countries. So we said quite soon, let's go to Asia as well. And grab immediately the largest country in Asia, China. So that was...
So what time are we talking about? Because you started in 99 and that was then...
I entered Sweden in 2005. With the second office. So the first office was in the Netherlands, the second one was Stockholm, was that time the Silicon Valley of Europe. The big things happened in Stockholm that time. And then the next step was China in 2006.
Cool. We're going to get back to that as into kind of what happened to China and what happened to your company there. Lucy, you're from New Zealand.
Correct.
And you came to the Netherlands approximately 10 years ago. Can you tell us about that story?
Yeah, sure. So thank you for having me, by the way. I, like many Kiwis or Antipodeans or people just from far places in the world, I wanted to see the world. It was as simple as that. I graduated, it was the first recession, and I thought that I would test it out in Europe. So I actually went to Italy first, fell in love with Italy. And then I thought the Netherlands was probably a great place to be that's both European, but also where I could start my career, having studied new media and digital. And so long story short, kind of arrived as a 23-year-old, naive, hopeful, a couple of €1,000 in my bank account to last, and made it work.
Well, I mean, because you started a company. It's not like you actually went to look out for a job or anything.
Well,
it was just...
No, I didn't start a company when I arrived in the country. I mean, I've definitely worked my way up. I've worked in lots of Dutch companies. I've worked in lots of Dutch NGOs. I've worked for Media Monks, which is the largest digital production company of the planet. But I've also worked for Solidaridad and Hivos. So for me, it's like my whole education, my whole career is actually Dutch. And only after being in the Netherlands for 2 or 3 years did I move to Amsterdam. So I was actually in The Hague.
Wow, okay.
And to be honest, it was really difficult to get a visa to stay. So I had a highly skilled migrants visa, which, I'm a millennial. So I think had I not been kind of bound to one employer, I would have switched more than I did. I still switched quite a few times. But then basically after I'd been head of communications for 2 different companies and to be honest, not really found my place and my voice within what they were doing, I thought, well, I've bought a house, I've gone this far, like what could go wrong? Let me start my own thing. So yeah, after observing the lay of the land here in the Netherlands for I think 7 years, I started my own company. Yeah.
So it's kind of like, okay, so you felt boarded in a way with regard to the companies and the offering that they had with their job, or the jobs that you have fulfilled with them. You started a company called the Humble Brag, very purpose-driven.
Yeah.
Quick overview of what that purpose
yeah, sure. So I have a background obviously working in media, but also studied international relations. And luckily for me, some of the first jobs that I had here in the Netherlands, actually the one that kept me here and got me my visa, was working for Hivos, which is a Dutch NGO. And they put me on a global program working across Africa and Asia, reporting on innovation in technology and development, but also democracy and governance. So it was very meaty. And I also worked in sustainable fashion. And I think for me, I saw obviously the world changing. And when I went later into advertising, I realized that there was actually this business case for doing good, and that my worlds between social impact and corporate responsibility were coming together. So basically, yeah, the Humble Brag in a nutshell, we help companies, brands, startups find their purpose and amplify them. But more and more as the impact space matures, it goes beyond just amplifying it to actually think about like, well, what is sustainable, or how can you amplify different voices?
So you've put that into a service, into a consultancy framework. I'm just going to move over back to Jaco, because he's also in consultancy, into advisory framework in China. Something happened there as well with you, which I think is really interesting with regards to purpose and changing landscapes. But maybe, you know, we could start first with entering China and what happened there and how you went about.
Yeah, the moment I entered China was Q1 2006. The online internet landscape was totally different than it is today, because that time China quite far behind what's happening here in Europe. The way also was that everyone did go to internet bars in and around the city. And that's really rapidly changed after the introduction, of course, of the mobile phones, the mobile smartphones. So the first way to enter was telling the story. And there were at that time not that many Western already being in online and being in China and going there around. So we got a lot of attention, and immediately we started also to serve large gaming companies, because that was already big that time. Everyone did go to these internet bars for gaming. So we've developed programs to get us gamers even closer to the software developers. And that's how we started. But that moment afterwards was that people saw the possibilities of getting messages out via email, via spam, and all these kind of steps. And that should be regulated, because all these inboxes of these gamers and everyone what was already with email addresses, they were full of spam messages, and that was the reason you could buy easily a DVD with 1 million email addresses everywhere on the street. So that was what did happen, and being there, saying, hey, we should change the world. We should change how it is with spam. So we said we make the program and bring that to the government and say, hey, we should have, like the rest of the world, an anti-spam program in China.
So it's interesting to see that you're working on boundaries with regard to people's email boxes, right? So you went into China, you entered into email marketing, you decided like there's a connectivity going on there that isn't governed, that requires policy. So, you know, maybe if we, advise China or help China to develop a policy there, then actually we can bring around a better and a sustainable business and actually more effective email.
Yeah, if you look back to the whole story, you think that could be a really nice story to tell, but it was not like this, because it was safeguarding our own business.
Right.
And from a lot of companies, it's not so much different than for receiving a spam or an email marketing. And if companies don't know these differences, they go for the cheapest option. And that's spamming. So for us, making spamming illegal in China makes it for us a really good business for companies. And the same thing is one step further goes also for ISPs, let's say internet service providers. We know them here in Europe from Hotmail and Gmail. They got a lot of spam messages. So we're telling them we should introduce the anti-spam law in China. That saves your inboxes as well. So we start working together with this ISPs, and we're making a program for this government in China. And then it's the long lobby getting this in place. But on the end, that was for us in the end the difference being successful in China. Because if we didn't do that, you're always competing with spammers, and they were way cheaper than we were. So it's a good story saying, hey, we help China to be more, to get the inboxes clean and helping ISPs, but at the end, it was also to save our asses in the country.
So and it'd be more kind of like quality instead of quantity.
Exactly.
And I think that's something that you're also looking into with regard to companies, kind of where they are safekeeping their messaging. How do you look at that as a PR expert?
So I work with earned media. and earned reputation. So for me, that's really rewarding because it's about creating stories that people want to hear about. It's less about like how can we engage a million eyeballs on something a message they don't want to receive, but literally what's exciting, what's meaningful for people, and how can we create something around that. And I think especially as consumers expect more from businesses, there's an opportunity for companies to actually do good, and these are stories that are worth getting out there. So my particular perspective is really on individual leaders. So 50% of a firm's reputation is tied to its CEO. So there is an expectation now from young audiences particularly, but audiences in general, that business leaders are more transparent and more authentic and more personable. I think in the time of COVID, expectations around business leaders, being available and also being empathetic and being human has never been higher. So we focus on the story of the leader and how to encourage and support them to be a bit more transparent, a lot more braver, and hopefully more purpose-driven.
But it's really interesting because we have one here who's you've been CEO for a couple of companies, but also advising a lot of companies. You've been investing here and there, buying, selling, etc. How do you look at your leadership? And also, one of the things that you did was you traveled a lot before, talking about transparency, talking about connectivity with your people.
Yep.
Something has changed there as well for you. Like you've been literally boarded back to the Netherlands where you live with your family. How do you go about that as a leader, as a CEO of multiple companies?
Now the thing was, in the beginning, you have your strategy, how you do it here in the Netherlands, and it's just about energy. Because you're into the technology, you want to reach something, and everyone around you follow your dream. That's also what's happened in Sweden, but entering China, I tried to do the same. But there it's really what the leader says we should do as a whole organization.
So there's a cultural difference.
It's absolutely a cultural difference. So my first thing was, okay, I don't like this office place with this small cubes to work in. So let's put them all away and make it like Dutch, like big tables where we're working on. So that was already a big step for the people over there. And what we have done is in the past is building trust from more or less day one. I was not in control of the financial. Of course, in the end, I was, but I was not 100% within the office in China. So I give them the cards for the bank, so they could do actually more or less everything for.
That's quite a lot of freedom.
I give them a lot of freedom, and in the end, that did pay off because what you see now, and you're telling us, well, with this COVID, I'm on distance. It's all happened on the other side of the world.
When's the last time you went back to China?
I'm back on December 4th, so it's
been
8 months.
A year, yeah, 8 months, yeah.
Yeah, and I live more or less from my back in the last, 16 years. So it's a big difference now. That's absolutely,
I'm sure.
It's absolutely a shock.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And you obviously also a leader of your own company. You're going to make a big shift.
Yeah, so after being in Europe for 10 years, I think that we've seen a lot of things happen during COVID, which is that a lot of businesses are more online than ever, a lot of meetings are more online than ever. I think on a personal level, I work a lot in sustainability, and I've actually just wanted to live a more sustainable life, which for me means living closer with nature and also returning to my country. I am working and talking a lot about diversity and inclusion, and I'm privileged enough to come from a country with a thriving Indigenous culture. And as a white New Zealander, I actually feel like some sort of responsibility to go back and to engage more and to understand what's going on in the New Zealand context.
Is there any of your experiences in recent months that has actually contributed to that decision?
I think it was always, so I'm a Kiwi, I ended up marrying an Italian that I met in Dutch class here in the Netherlands. We got married on a boat in the canals. So we very much married Amsterdam. It was also a celebration of our life and creating a life here. But I think that, I left New Zealand so young. I know you've also experienced living far from home, but everybody told me there would come a time when I wanted to return and be closer to family. And that is what's happening.
So I think it also has to do with proximity for your business, right? I mean, you're very PR driven, you're very people driven, you're very in connectivity, you're very much in the event space.
Yeah.
And that's something changed there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting a lot of opportunities online anyway. And so for me, as a Kiwi, I was very excited about building a global reputation and having connections. You know, we have clients in Copenhagen, but also here in the US. It's very exciting. But I think that that's still possible from New Zealand. I think there's also a growing Asia Pacific market. And I've also been developing online products, so courses, and thinking about how to scale our services. So that's a space that I'm quite interested in, how to turn this into a digital business and less of a service consultancy-based business, or at least, we can only take on so many clients anyway. So yeah, I'm wearing two hats, which is like entrepreneur, founder, purpose, mission driven, and also scalability and financial sustainability. And sometimes it's really hard to be all of these people at once.
But it's doable because you've done it. You're doing it.
Yeah, but it's also I'm really interested when the COVID, all this happened.
Yeah.
Did you start calling at home more often? Is it this video calling that you do more often than this?
Do you know what? I mean, I've fallen into this funny habit of somebody that, like, quite honestly didn't speak a lot to my parents when I was a teenager, grumpy, left home, was kind of done. Morning and night I speak to them. And I think that, like, it's just a time when you get really clear on what's important to you and who's close to you. So yeah, so that's what it's like. I think also the time difference is that, like, New Zealand's 12 hours behind, so morning and night kind of makes sense. But yeah.
That's the thing that happened for us as well, because on January 20, COVID was in our team in China. So it was in
so your actual team had COVID?
Yeah, no, the people they stayed in Wuhan, so it was then it was closed. So family from my colleagues, they were. Yeah. So we are really aware about what's happened already from January 20. Even nobody did hear about it here in the Netherlands, and now it's far away. It's in China. And then was also my first reaction. The first thing we should do is close the airport, because it will happen here as well. Yeah. But it was in the end. It was already a long time. They said before Christmas that it was already in Europe. But it's the way that it's now happening in Wuhan. That you also you try to help them from distance. Right. So one of the first thing you do is send them protection stuff you could find here in Europe and send them over to China, not knowing that 2 months later, we need everything from China helping our own citizens.
It was like watching it in slow motion, wasn't it? I remember in January just thinking, like, what is happening in Wuhan is just terrifying, and here we are living with it.
Yeah, so it's...
you continued, you went on with your business.
I went on, but it's actually from 2011 I started to travel up and down to China, because then my home base was the Netherlands again. And more or less every day we have contact, and not by phone, but always with video calling. Right. And there's not so much changing, but the only thing is that it's also changed now between colleagues here in the Netherlands. They just start video calling because everyone was working from home. And then you have a day that you are video calling from 5 a.m. in the morning till 12 till noon, and sometimes even in the afternoon. And now you have the idea that you're just being on the screen.
So there's no more borders for you with regard to boundaries, with regard to kind of like when you're in work modus and other sort of types of...
That's true, but the colleagues will live just 10 kilometers from the office. That you have this video calling already with them too. So it's all the same. It doesn't matter anymore if you're calling with China and your colleagues here in Europe. I
struggle with that because, like, a lot of what I do is also going for coffees with people, and it really is part of my job, forming connections, ideating with journalists, pitching in ideas. But also, there are a lot of interesting initiatives out there, but my capability to have so many kind of online coffees has dwindled because it's an energy drain. I mean, even if it's the most inspiring conversation in the world, if you've got back-to-back Zoom calls, it's kind of different. So I'm trying to figure out how to create space for those authentic connections online. So whether it's like going for a walk and having a call, but it's difficult.
Yeah. Is it something that you see with your clients as well in the commercial space, like the email company, the whole sort of channel marketing, the digital, like, Has that had an impact? Has it become less effective because people are more on video calls and lesser on other channels, or is nothing changed there, or are people just generally more behind the screen?
I have nothing to do with web power in Europe anymore. So it's in China was already really on social. What you'll see is that channels like WeChat and WeChat Work, where we run the whole company on WeChat Work.
So how's for people here? So how's WeChat Work different from anything that you've seen here?
No, it's a combination of. Let's say that WeChat. If you try to imagine it, that is more or less a WhatsApp.
Okay.
Much more, but the basic functionality, and then you have Slack add to it. So WeChat works more than like Slack. Not only the conversations for projects, but also HR, hiring new staff, getting this management reports out of it. So it's all this kind of applications combined again, and that's for us more or less our whole office. So I can do the same than I'm in China. And the thing is, I'm not really directly in the business anymore. I'm just advising my colleagues, helping large clients with a strategy, not in China, but global. And what you see also for these Chinese organizations, they're really searching outside of China now for new opportunities.
So that's what Agency China does, is basically bring out companies from China into the globe.
More from the globe to China.
Okay.
Because in web power we are just a technical company, so we help to implement this marketing automation solutions. With Agency China, we're really helping brands being successful in China. So from research till marketing, till bringing the products on marketplaces in China.
Has anything changed since COVID?
You see that now there are two things. One, it's in China. It was 6 weeks really negative for us. We're losing, the company is losing both a lot of money, but it feels picked up in 6 weeks again. And the gap we had in the first weeks from the money we lose in the first weeks, they really get it up in 6-7 weeks again. So the results this year will be the same as last year. If you look to the e-commerce part, it's for the Western companies. They stopped investing in e-commerce in China because they have a lot to do here in Europe to get their own business up and running. Now they have seen that also for there, a lot of business goes to marketplaces. They want to go up quite rapidly now also to other countries again. And one is, of course, China. So they're searching for possibilities in China. So
China is still very much a growth market, and there's still very much a lot of opportunity.
Absolutely.
And okay, so how's that for you? Like, you're moving to the other side.
In China.
No, but you're moving to the other side. Do you have, and that, so it's kind of like also time zone wise. I think that's an interesting perspective, also to kind of like look at that business. No, well, I mean, Jaco gets out of his bed every morning 5 a.m. to be on that time zone of China.
Yeah.
You are going to be in China's time zone. You're going to be in the APAC. You're going to be in the other, the down under. So how do you then see that scale up?
Definitely. I mean, I think it's very beneficial for our clients to know that we have both like a European, American, but also Asia Pacific reach. I think the markets are very interesting as businesses look to diversify and scale. So I'm excited. I mean, I've been gone for 10 years, so I will find out what is down under for me. But I know that for the Asia Pacific and particularly like the New Zealand market, my global connections are very interesting. So I'm excited to see what I can bring home and what value I can add there as well.
Yeah, but also indeed, like, you now have gone from actually singular European to a global proposition.
Yeah, I mean, we were already working global. I think it's like, especially when you work with media, everything's online. So we're not really pitching to print publications anyway. So it's kind of borderless. But I'm prepared to wake up early and go to bed late. I've got some long-standing clients here that luckily I know that I'll be able to bring home with me. So, yeah.
And so it's also with partnerships, finding partners, something that maybe you can add some of the experiences that you've already had. How do you go about finding partners? How do you build companies with others? How did you scale?
It was not that you have just success. So sometimes you really feel in this one as well. But on the end, it's your gut feeling if someone fits your company or not. What someone will give you the feeling back that you will give to him, and the energy that you get back from him that you give to him. And that's how you build a company in the end. And I don't know, how do you find the right person? It's the guy I found in China. It's now the CEO in China. He's from he was in a university here in the Netherlands, and I met him, and I got immediately a good feeling about him. He was 10 years younger than I am, but we did go together over, and we started running the organization there. But he makes so many failures. But I could not speak Chinese. He did. He was translator, and we did go for 100% in and work 7 days a week. And on the moment you give this energy and you come with something new, I think everyone can have success in the end. And in the end, sometimes you need to be lucky as well.
So it's dedication to breaking borders and going beyond boundaries. Also, with regard to, I'm interested in how you look at like creativity, because companies obviously have been disrupted. Yeah. You were just talking about kind of you make failures. You both work for companies that I'm sure have made their failures. How do you go about that? What's your best lessons learned with regard to how those companies or how you work together with them creatively?
I mean, so a part of my job, obviously reputation management, you're dealing with crisis sometimes, of course. So I think that at least a lot of my clients, their positioning is to be ahead of the market, which means being open-minded and open to innovation and open to new voices and perspectives. So I think for me, it's like always holding and standing true and this trust the process. Let's go and explore new paths. Let's truly be open. Let's create a culture around that, even a partnership, and embrace change, whether that's changing a proposition or changing a voice. But I think it's very difficult now in a post-COVID world, a world in which people are very much aware of climate change, a world in which social justice is top of everybody's lips. These issues no longer just exist out in the world, they exist in the boardroom too. So I think that, people have to get used to being uncomfortable and to doing things differently. There's just no option.
Do you agree with that?
Absolutely agree. The way of doing business online, it's more or less the same. The way how the consumer market is behaving is totally different because they also don't see borders. Everyone starts shopping on marketplaces. And then for let's say the teenagers what start already shopping on AliExpress, it don't matter for them anymore where the products are coming from. But in the end, we start thinking already, hey, the products are just plastic. We should not buy them. We should get other products, and that's already happened on young age. So what you see buying from marketplace, also the product, what people buying is starting to change. And I think how earlier it starts, how better it is. Even if you got the last years, for example, AliExpress, that everyone bought the cheap stuff. You see that the average price of every order is increasing a lot. And that happened already in China, and you see that here now too. And there's something changing, it's changing mindset.
I feel it.
Yeah. There's something that I'm interested in, is in like global innovation. So there's like these regional aspects with regard to kind of the claim of innovation. And I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on that as being, global workers, global trotters, as I introduced you. There's sort of like the Western type of innovation, and then there's the Chinese type of innovation, and then there's like, how do you look at that? What things have you seen?
Innovation is just a perspective. I think that I was, just last week, we were representing and communicating a super exciting project called Upstream, which is a collaboration between the city of Rotterdam and The Hague and Sweden. And it was all about exploring the next economy. And there was a speaker there that really resonated with what I said, because he said there's so much focus on innovation, these sexy new solutions, and particularly with sustainability, little solutions that have the potential to scale. And he said, meanwhile, the Dutch government is creating hundreds of thousands of houses that don't comply to these regulations. So what's the balance between promising innovation and just long-term impactful change that maybe is less sexy overall? I think we're all looking for the silver bullet that can be the solution to our problems, but sometimes the most innovative things actually, take the most time, and it may be a bit more boring long-term.
Yeah, now you see that a lot of companies, even in China, they're really looking forward to hearing great stories, what they could do in the next month and the next years, making a long time plans for international business, and they would like to see also in front of the company making everything on a whiteboard and helping them making plans. That's not possible for me anymore. I can't fly to China. It was already a long time ago that I was in China. And you see now that also this kind of strategy sessions going online too. So in the end, I thought always I should be there, helping the team, helping our clients and potential clients. But on the end, it's not necessary. You can do it online too. So it's not necessary to fly over for every.
Yeah, but it means that maybe that innovation, whether regard to kind of like if it's sexy or if it's not, or if it's long or it's not, it's actually breaking down borders. Because if we can actually place strategy into a digital sphere, then we're obviously going to have completely different interactions and other kind of like instead, and we're not probably going to. Because one of the things that triggered me earlier is like you went to China. You open up an office and you broke down the cubes and you put down a big table, and that's kind of now what you're saying. We're going to do that digitally as well. It's not a big table, but it's it's a digital whiteboard in a way. So all of a sudden, maybe there's more of a opportunity to look at like creating propositions that are value based rather than having to then also deal with cultural aspects. It's a wonder, right? So I don't know what your ideas would be about kind of that cultural impact with regard to change. Is there a cultural?
Yeah, I mean, I think my observation was more about like there is this idea that innovations exist out there and that all we need to do is find the next innovation to solve some of our problems. Whereas I guess I'm just trying to throw out there that sometimes the solutions we already have are there and just demand human willpower or a change in strategy. Yeah, but in terms of cultural, I mean, yeah, that's something I can't speak to. I did leave New Zealand in my early 20s before my career had started, so I can only speak to the Dutch context. But I'd say here, I've definitely picked up on this entrepreneurial spirit. I think that there is like a gusto and a creativity here where you jump on opportunities, and there's an agility that's kind of palpable here, especially in Amsterdam.
Okay.
Yeah.
No. Okay. So I'm going to give it a complete different twist, because one of the things that I'm also interested in is you were saying earlier, you started out with gaming companies. And then if we look at like socials and social interaction, and then coming back also to a little bit to creativity, there's a lot of millennials, digital natives that are finding that creative space, TikTok being one, obviously Instagram being one. How do you, I mean, with your knowledge in China, with bringing about the anti-spam law, looking at the global, the world, like the TikTok discussion and the US, do you have a perspective on that?
Now, on the moment, if you're an American, you think Trump is always right. So I think for a lot of people, and especially in this TikTok case, if you think, okay, the data goes also China, we shouldn't do this part. If you look from the Chinese perspective, I don't think that TikTok should be sold to a company in the US, because the whole IE behind TikTok, it's amazing what they have done. That's why we are so addicted to it, because everything you're doing something, you get a new present with a new movie, and it's full.
It's all very reward driven.
Absolutely, and that's what they have done really well. The other side, what I think, why Trump wants to have this, America is losing the whole IE game. Buying TikTok, you're buying so much knowledge from China. And what I think the whole next industrial revolutions is this whole AI thing.
Definitely.
And if China wins this AI game, they will rule the world for the next years.
So what
that's
you're
what happened in the last
saying is
years.
that digital is commodifying in a way. So if we're looking at trade, this is obviously sort of a trade war that you're saying, like,
it should be regulated, actually. Our social behavior, like technology companies are the most powerful companies.
Yep.
They're one of the most unregulated. These are social spaces where conversation used to happen, and slowly our minds are being altered. I mean, you just have to watch The Social Dilemma on Netflix.
I've done, and we all know, but the idea that just what they say in this social dilemma, from Netflix, they're saying just 50 people deciding what 2 billion people are watching.
Yeah.
And that with this in mind, it's crazy, of course. But what China has done with this whole IE, I think it's so much further than all other IE platforms, of other social platforms. Because you really, if you start using TikTok, it's so addicting you're really soon addicted to every new movie that's coming in, and it's really well done.
But you're calling for governance in that area?
I mean, it's certainly not a professional call. It's just like a personal realization that actually, you know, there's a lot of resistance to regulation. That's also like Trump's whole shtick. But in this case, I really see that actually these are no longer just fun social spaces, they're civic spaces, and they're changing. There's increasing polarization. There's a financial incentive for companies to actually engage us on our lowest common denominator behavior rather than create inclusive conversations or spaces. So yeah, I think that many people are worried about the future, and you know, I think there should be some skepticism around the promise of AI, and these algorithms are only going to get smarter. I think it's difficult if you're working in the social impact space to get your voice heard. And I think it's important that people like me that also work with owned media obviously understand these platforms and how to leverage them. But yeah, I certainly will be supporting a move to regulate social media platforms for sure.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, Jacco is very much on that same...
I think many people are.
I think...
apart from the most powerful.
But
it's really scary if you know how the technology works. It's quite scary, yes.
Yeah, and I mean, you've been on it from a very, very early stage, and you've been always very exploratory in that area, and even I know that you've even implanted some technology into
That's
your... to move out in China. You were one of the first, say, foreigners who did that. So I think it's again kind of like looking at, okay, how far can you, what is invasive and what is not invasive, and like how I think a lot of people are actually wondering like how are we going to, because coming back to the social dilemma, when they, you know, that was a social good what they tried to
I think we all thought the internet was amazing.
Like, you know, the like button is going to bring more positivity, and then all of a sudden the other side came about.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, you know, as somebody, I've always been really interested in the media. I was like, wow, this is amazing. There's going to be so many new voices, so many new media platforms. I remember writing my thesis about that at university, so hopeful. And that's not necessarily how I feel anymore. I think we're all stuck in a race between how can we all stay relevant as we become ever more digital, but also how can we retain our own humanity and our own value-based system and actually make sure that these tools are working for us and that we're not working for them. And I think that's a friction that a lot of people have.
And I think so,
No, that's absolutely right. It gives you so much new opportunities. The innovation, it's not the end. The innovation will go even faster in the next years with new opportunities. You see many, I have this implants, but you see also this lenses what coming over. That you see all this information already on your lens. It's amazing how far it goes, and I love this technology, but I also see the negative side out of it as well.
What's the implant?
I have a chip that I can pay at Albert Heijn with my hand instead of my phone or.
How are we not talking about that?
Well, go ahead. What would you like to know?
I had no idea that existed. Are there? So you have like a.
I have a chip in my hand. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I don't know how I feel about that.
No, it's just I was one of the early ones to try this. And, and I also was searching for the possibilities, and it was for me also more a self-study than that I really do like and use it. So it's just what can I program on it, how far it can go, what can I do with it. That was my attention having this one.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, it's some part of being an entrepreneur, and I think particularly in the digital world, and particularly being global, is like creativity is also an exploration, right?
Yeah, so a risk taker.
I think, definitely a risk taker, and I think you know, there's something to be said there as kind of like understanding where the borders are and where the boundaries are, and I think for you're just kind of like, I'd rather go and advance myself in there and learn and understand, and I think that's very much what you've done with regard to the Chinese government, but also you know around the world with the companies that you're advising. I think it's very supportive. I think in that way, you know, you're helping your companies to explore, you know, taking risk maybe and being more direct and more clear and more transparent.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, to be honest, you know, I am an individual that feels very mission driven, and I'm very committed to exploring how my skill set and Power Platform can be used to drive the change I want to see in the world. So I've created a business around that, and that's what guides my business decisions. So I'm less, I'm just driving my business from a different perspective. I'm a millennial, what can I say? I'm exploring how much impact I can have. I'm the kind of founder that might make a decision that's slightly more purpose-driven than profit-driven, but I'm definitely interested in scalability. So I'm trying to test my own limits with, what does it mean to have a positive impact on a larger scale, and how can that be replicable? And also, how can I make a profit? You can't just be purpose-driven. Let's not be naive. I'm definitely part of these new conversations, but creating the Humble Brag for me was very much about like living my mission.
Oh, I think the overall. You wanted to respond to that?
No. It's a way. For me, the same. You're trying to be inspirational, being on stage, helping companies. What is all possible? That's the end stage, and how would you go over to being there in the end, and being there in the end stage for these companies, or how far you can look forward. You need technology in these days. It's not possible doing that without technology. And
and also one of the reasons I even called the business the Humble Brag is because you've got a lot of inspiring founders or entrepreneurs or innovators that don't necessarily know how to tell their story. So my whole pitch to these CEOs is like, you can create more impact if you're more visible. Embrace telling your story in a way that doesn't feel like shameless self-promotion. How can you bring value? How can you be more visible online? So I think we agree there.
Fantastic. We have an agreement here. This has been really, really interesting. And I think actually as a conclusion, we can really kind of continue, or you can advise people to continue to explore, to actually cross boundaries, cross borders, take on a little bit of a adventure. I wish you all the luck in your adventure moving back to New Zealand. And obviously I wish you the same luck in moving further and way beyond to wherever you are at the moment. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.